Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe, and this is Bootstrapping Tools Let's Build, where we build apps together in real time to help scrappy bootstrappers just like yourself figure out how to optimize their workflows to make themselves more efficient and do more with less time. Now, before we dive into today's video, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of videos on all different types of applications, from Google App Scripts to Google Sheets, Retool, App Scripts, Data Studio, as well as many others. If you don't see what you're looking for, feel free to drop an email to feedback@bootstrapping.tools, and we'll be happy to take a look at that tool and possibly make a video just for you. Now, in today's video, we're going to be going over Retool and Shopify, more specifically, optimizing your Retool apps UX and UI design using ListViews and Dynamic Content. If you don't know what UX is, don't worry. It basically just stands for user experience, which is essentially the behavior or the layout that you put your app in. So if you want to place buttons on the top right or the top left or wherever it might be, it's really just to make it optimized for the intended behavior goal that you're trying to do. Also, UI is user interface, which is really just like the styling of it and helping to make certain colors pop out a little bit more, so it's easier for the user or yourself navigate through that application and do what you're trying to do faster. So let's dive into our Retool application. The last thing that we did was to connect Retool to Shopify's API, and then we grabbed a bunch of data, including product information, and then the variance for each one, and then also the inventory levels based on the order data that you have, where we calculated the reserved inventory. And reserved inventory, just as a reminder, is the amount of inventory that you have to set aside for confirmed orders so that you don't end up selling everything without enough inventory to actually fulfill those orders. You don't want to do that. That's bad for the customer. So reserved inventory, very important when you're doing an e-commerce site online. So over here, we have a bunch of tables. So it's not exactly the best user interface. The table itself, you have to kind of navigate through in a paginated view. So you have multiple pages with multiple products. And as you click through it, it's going to populate another table that you can't necessarily see all the information in an easy format. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to remove all this. We're just going to delete it out, and then we're going to start with list views. List views is essentially a dynamic list of content that you can customize. You can put images in there, you can relay out everything, you can make titles, and then with that we're going to generate a container on the side that displays the content or detailed view for each product whenever you click on one of those list items. That way it's a really nice experience, it's more visual, and you get a lot of interaction with the application so that your users can have more control and can see what the content they want a little bit better. So we have a lot of queries over here. We're not going to need all of them today. We're actually going to refactor this a little bit, because within the products data, if I hit preview over here and then show you exactly what that looks like, you'll notice that within the payload we get back from Shopify, you already have the variance data. And one of the things that goes with user experience is the speed of your application. So if you don't need to make multiple calls to an API to get the data you're looking for, you might as well try to minimize that so that your app runs a little bit faster. So first things first, let's go ahead and just remove all of this stuff. So we can hit the command button, hold down, and then click on everything. And then we're just gonna go ahead and delete all of that. Don't worry about the alert over here that tells you, oh no, everything is gonna get deleted. We're going to add all that back. So go ahead and hit delete. Now we're working on a brand new clean slate. So the first thing you want to think about when you're thinking about UX is speed and accuracy. So those two things are the main things that make a product, or I guess make it or break it for a product, because your users are always going to be looking for, how can I get to what I'm trying to do faster, and how can I make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So we're going to use this list view. So just type in list view into the components section over here, and you'll see that right up over here, list view. And you're just going to drag that over to your workspace. So let's drag that over to the upper left-hand corner. Let's make this a little bit smaller, because we're going to want this side on the right to contain all the information about the particular product that we're selecting. So just to fill up that space as well, let's go ahead and drop down a container. So we're just going to pick the container option from the components from Retool, drag it in, put it right next to it, and now we have two containers side by side, one of them being a list view and the other one being a container, which will hold a grouping of different components within it. So for a list view, the thing that you're going to have to do is tell it what your row keys are. So in our case, it's going to be the product information. So let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. Within our products information and payload that we get back, we have a set of products here, and that's within an array, and that's exactly what we want. So what we'll do here is for the row keys, do the double curly brackets, which is Retool's syntax for gathering data that you have stored. And then we're going to do get products dot data and then dot products. And that's going to give us an array of about 30 elements. We have 30 products in our product catalog on the demo Shopify site that we made. The height of each row, we can make that dynamic, so we can just click on that toggle button, and then the number of rows is going to depend on how many products we have. So we're going to say get products dot data dot products dot length. That way, no matter how many products we're getting back from the API, the number of rows displayed in this list view is going to be dynamically dependent on that data set. So now that we have all that set up, it's time to add in some information. I'm going to go into insert, and let's start with something simple. Let's start with a text value. So let's just let's just drop it right over here. And you'll notice that it says it, hello Joe, 30 times. But we don't care about saying hi to me. So we're going to replace that with the curly brackets, get products dot data dot products, and then now we're going to do the I is just kind of like looping through the data. That's how Retool does it for this particular component. And then within here, let's use the title. That's pretty verbose, looks pretty nice, Adidas classic backpack, and then I'll do the rest for any other product within the list. So that is a lowercase t. Make sure case sensitivity is pretty important. So we'll put in title. Now you see here, say Adidas classic, Adidas kids stand, Adidas superstar, and you'll notice that it doesn't actually display everything. So let's go ahead and just drag that out, make it a little bigger so that we can see the full length of that title. So one of the greatest things about being able to use a list view is also being able to make it a little bit more visual. And being visual is pretty important, because if you're doing a UX design for like a list of information, it's a lot faster for someone to take a look at a picture, especially a product catalog, to take a look at a picture and identify, like, is that the product that they want to focus on? So I'm going to go back to insert over here for a new component. I'm going to type in image into the search, and we're just going to use this image component right over here. We're going to drag that into our space. Let's put that to the left of the title. And since it is visual, you can actually make that, let's say, make that about 3 columns worth. You can make that a little taller as well. That way we have a little bit more room to play with down below. And we can also drag our title across. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and make that title a little bit larger. We can use the markdown syntax for 4 hashtags or pound signs, and that's going to make it a header 4 type, which is pretty big, nice and clear, super easy to read. Now going back into our image, as much as cats are cool and kittens are amazing, let's replace this with the image that we get back from each product. So go ahead and collapse some of this information down here. I should go to this one and then collapse the variants, collapse the options, also the images, because there's one image object within the payload, and this is the hero image, or the first image that gets displayed. So we're going to want that SRC, which also stands for source. Let's go in here, double curly braces, just like we always do. We're going to do get products dot data dot products. Remember the I, and then here it's located within image. So we're going to do image dot src, and that's going to give us that Shopify CDN URL for the image. So now we see on the right, on the left here, that we're getting images for each one of the products that we have listed. We've got shoes, we've got backpacks, we got fancier shoes, and also hats. This is looking pretty good. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is give the user a little bit more context. So when you're thinking about a product catalog, or really any type of like list of information, you want to see what are the things that make a product different from each other. Well, the image for sure, and the product for sure, but how do you give them a little bit more information so they know that when they click into it, there's some information that they might want to read or see? Well, with products, there's something called variants in there. And then within those variants, you're going to find options. So within those options, each product is going to be slightly different. So you might be able to see some more information. You've got size here and then color. And that's pretty much what we're going to have within this specific product catalog. But you could have other things as well for yours. You might have category in there. You might have, I don't know, pack size or whatever that might be, or types. But we just have size and color. So we're going to go ahead and use that information when we're building this out. So let's drop another text input field. Well, sorry, not a text input, just a regular text field. We don't want anybody to enter stuff here. Let's drop this under the title. And now what we're going to do is we're going to count the number of sizes available. Actually, let's not do that. Let's just display all the sizes available instead. So we're going to take all the sizes, which is located within the values over here. So this one only has one. Why don't we find one that has multiple, just so that we can easily see if we're doing it correctly. So I think this one is pretty good. This might be, let's see, which product number is this? Let's go ahead and collapse a few of these products. So starts from 0. Remember, in any array, position starts with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So position 4 has these variants. Let's collapse that. And then within the options, we got 3 here. And then colors, there's only 1. That's okay. We can go ahead and go with this one. So over here, let's do the double curly braces, get products, dot data, dot products, and we're going to do the I, dot options now. And then let's say for option 0, we want to get the name. So let's see what that says. That says size. Great. So let's go ahead and put a parentheses S just in case there's more than one size. That way we can't really do it dynamically in Retool. So we'll just do this. This is fine. It's an internal tool. We'll do a colon, and let's actually copy that over. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put in values. Okay. So remember, it was number 4 that we want to display. So let's say 4. And when we do that, we'll see that the sizes come 4, 8, and 14, just like the values that we see in here. So we know that we're doing it right. So let's make that back to an I. And this will just say OS for that size. And as we scroll down, we'll see sizes for this Adidas Kid Stan Smith is 1 and 2. And then this one, 5 through whatever. And then this is the one that we're actually focused on, the A6 Tiger. Just to check that, A6 Tiger, gray light, 30 years shell pack. Perfect. So it's doing exactly what we want to do, which is great. Now let's go back over here. Let's do the same thing for color. So you can just go ahead and hit the Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. Copy that, paste it right down, and then Retool will add it right underneath of that text box. So here, instead of doing option 0, we're going to do option 1, because this is the second option, and that's for color, and it's black. Now, the reason that we're doing option 0 and option 1 is because the way that the Shopify data works is that you can really only have 3 options in Shopify but by default, and you get to choose which one is which. So that's why we're just making a little bit dynamic. Maybe you set the color as the first one instead of the size. It'll just display colors on top and then sizes on bottom. If you have 3, we'll have 3. Our data set doesn't have 3, so we'll only work with 2 here. So now we have the size and the colors. And as we scroll down, we can see we have multiple sizes, and then if there are multiple colors, you'll also see that as well. Doesn't look like we have a lot, but that's okay. At least we know that for the sizes, it works. So scrolling back up to the top, let's go ahead and take this and copy it one more time. And we're not going to do the same thing. We're actually just going to change this whole thing to be the product description, because that's pretty useful as well. And the description here, you'll notice, is body HTML. So let's remove the options here, and we're going to say body underscore HTML, and then this will display the text, and you'll notice that it does not overflow. So we'll want to expand this box a little bit more so that we can see the information within it. As you scroll down, because it's a dynamic list view, it already displays all the information. You'll see that it's a little cut off over here. So what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of more spacing in between, so that we can display all the text that is available. So let's actually make this a little larger, and then we'll align this to the top, and then let's also make this a little bit bigger just in case we have some sizes that expand further than the actual container itself. Now Retool also has this nice feature for dividers, which is more like layouts. So we go down the list over here for presentation, zoom in here to show you guys. We have a divider, and then we also have a spacer. So we're actually going to use both, and we're going to put a little bit of a divider and then a space so that we can clearly define the differences between each one of these list items over here. So let's go ahead and start off with the spacer. I'm going to drop the spacer below the description over here. Make this a little bit bigger. And then we're also going to drop in that divider. So we can go ahead and just search the component divider. And we'll put it right below. Let's make this full width, just so it looks nice and pretty. So let's click out of that and just show you what it looks like. Let's do the preview button. So now when the app loads up, it's going to do a query for all the products, and then you'll see on the side, nice and well spaced out, really easy to read. You can see the images for each one, see the short description, how many sizes are available, the colors that are available, as well as a brief description on what that product is. So now what we're going to do is we're going to populate the right hand side here with all the information about this particular product. So let's go back into the edit app option. Let's build this out. If you notice on that previous screen, we actually have a little bit more white space on the bottom. So let's go ahead and just expand this a little bit, make it a little bit taller so that we can make use of the real estate that we have on the browser window. All right. So now, what if you remember, there's lots of data within each product, such as variants. And what we'll want to do is we want to let the user select the different variants, because when you place an order for an item, the consumer or the customer is specifically ordering one variant or variation of that product. So we're going to do a button group so that we can let the user quickly select between different variants. You can do a table and then do that, but it's not exactly as pretty. A button grouping will be much more prettier. So let's type in group in here, and then you're going to see button group. So let's just drag that in. Let's place it on top so it's easy to read. And then we can expand this a little bit because some of these might have a lot of variants. So we don't need the label. Let's remove that. And now what we're going to do here is we don't need this variant call anymore. Like I was mentioning before, if you can optimize your query so you're not making a call to an API as much as you need to, you can just quickly go ahead and just do it from one thing. So let's go ahead and remove this so we don't get confused. And then within the products, what we're going to do is let's open up this preview over here. We're going to create a JavaScript script, for lack of better terms, and then just pull out the variant information over here. And then we're going to grab also only the things that matter to our UI at the moment. That way we save a little bit of space. Space as in like speed performance. I'm going to hit new, JavaScript query, and then let's call this get variants. So I'm going to default the data to just var data. So we're going to declare data, and then we're going to set this to get products data products, and then this is going to be I for the dynamic part of this, and then we're going to say variants. All right, now we're going to do return data just to see what we got. This one has 26 keys, so that's the entire thing. And if we go over to this guy, we should see more. Well, actually need to click on that and then trigger the query. So that's get variants, that's the one we want. Now that we have that set up, preview 6, so let's actually save this. And now when we click on the Adidas Superstar 80s, we'll see that we have 6 different variants in here, each one with its own title, SKU, name, and all of that. All right, so as we're planning this out, you got to think about what else do you need within your application. Remember, we want to get the inventory level so that we know how much inventory we have available for this particular SKU, which means also we're going to need the SKU. And then we want to calculate the reserved inventory. So we're going to need to know about the orders data, which to get the orders data, if you remember, you require an inventory item ID, as well as the SKU information. So we're just going to grab all of that from this get variance query that we're running. So within the variance data, let's hit preview again to show you, and let's expand this to give us more space. In here, we have the title, which we'll use for the button names, and then we're going to use the ID so that we can grab data, and then also the SKU. We can grab the price, we might as well, we can show that up there as well. And then there's a few other things in here that we can do. So with this, let's just go ahead and we're going to start leveling out the data here. So we can leave the variant information here just in case we want to use that information. Let's go ahead and create another query here. That's to get the variant names. So we'll do a new JavaScript query. Let's move this over here, and then let's say get variant names. So our data, try to keep it consistent so that when you look at the code, it's not too jarring. Say var data equals get variants dot data, and then let's go ahead and return that data just so that we can make sure we're looking at the right information. It's perfect. So that's exactly what we want to see. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to loop through it. So we're using a simple for loop. You can use whatever type of loop you want. You can use a while loop or whatever. I'm going to use a for loop. So I is less than data.length, and then I plus plus. And then for that, what we're going to do is before this, we're going to declare variant names as a variable, and we're going to set that up to be an array. I'm going to take variant names, and then we're going to push into it the information that we want. So variant names.push, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to say all of the variant names that are in the data set. So that's going to be data I dot title. So let's return the variant names. Let's see what that looks like. So now we have a list of all the names. So let's save this, collapse it a little bit. Let's change our button group over here to display those values. So get variant names.data. Oh, that's null right now because we need to run it. Boom. So now we have button groups, and you can click on each one and interact with it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to set it up so that the area below, as the user clicks on one of these options, it displays the information dynamically below it. So let's add a divider just for cleanliness in the design. Add this divider right underneath here. And while we're at it, let's actually give it a little bit more room just in case we have more variants than this. All right. So now that we have the names being displayed, what we're going to want to do is within this variant data, we're going to want to select a specific variant in it to display that information. On this, we have 6 of these right now, and then we want to only select the one that's been selected. So what we need to do is to set a temporary state, because button groups aren't meant to be used like this in particular, but just so that you have a really good UX, this is a good way to do it. We're going to set up an event handler. I'm going to say instead of triggering a query, I'm going to set a temporary state. I'm going to create a new state. This state is going to be called state 1 by default, but we're going to do this to the button group.value. So that's 10/white for size 10 white color. Set that up and close that out. And then on the right hand side, temporary states up here. And click on that. And then once you select it, on the left hand side, you're going to be able to rename it. So let's go ahead and call this selected variant name. And then the initial value, just so that it's always something that is selected, let's go ahead and set this to get variants names.data, and then we'll just select the first one. Nice and easy. So let's just test this out. If you click on this, we should automatically have the first one selected when, oh, wait, sorry, we have to refresh this whenever this clicks. So let's click on this, go over here. And this says get variants trigger. So that's one. And then we need to trigger the get variant name. So after we get the variants, let's add a new event handler. You can do that on the bottom over here. Click on new. And it's going to ask you to select a query. And we're going to say get variant names. So let's go ahead and save that. Now click on this again. And it's going to update all the variant names that are available over here. So this now is the selected variant name is set. So let's just check this, what's going on here. Selected variant name set value, we set the button group value to that. So if we set this, the selected temporary state says 7 white, 5 white. Okay, so when we select this, we expect that the temporary state gets updated. So we have the default state. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add in another click event for when you click on the images. I'm just going to say set the temporary state of the selected variant name to be the same thing that we did for the default value before. Get variants names.data, not the first one. All right, so click on this. See that it defaults to, oh wait, it did a default, didn't it? Select that. So it defaulted quickly, but then now something else is happening here so that it changes the selection. Maybe it's this one here too. So let's go ahead and set this to get variant names.data.0. Okay, there we go. Select this and get selected. If we click away from it, that's fine. And then when we select another product, it defaults back to the first one. Perfect, exactly what we want. And we can see here that it changes the value of the selected variant name. So that's now 5 white. And go down here, it should be 4 black. Perfect. All right, so now that we have this is a really nice view now. We got a nice list view, we got a dynamic button group that's working, and as you select it, different products, it auto generates the selections as well as defaults to the first one so that you're never looking at stale data. So what we're going to want to do now is let's go ahead and grab the SKU information. So we're going to display the SKU underneath of that divider on the right hand side. So we have get variants, we have get variant names. Let's go ahead and duplicate the get variant names. Not that we're going to use the same code, just it's easier for me to do that. So we're going to say get selected variants. Let's get selected variant details. All right, so we can blow away this data here, and then let's say data equals data and the get variance data. So if we preview this, it's just going to be all of this, which is everything. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to filter out this data so that the information that we get back is only equal to the one that was selected. So we do data equals data dot filter, and then we're going to do function. So it's function within the filter. So we'll do row and then curly brackets for your actual code here, and we're going to return the row dot title whenever it equals to the selected variant name dot value. So return that. We'll see here that it only returns 1. That's 5 white. Click on this. It should update the data as well. Oh, wait. It's not going to select data yet. Let's run this. And it should be 6 white. Great. So now in order to make this dynamic, we're going to have to add another event handler over here. So we're going to click on Add New. And Retool is already smart enough to select the most recent query that we were working on, get selected variant details. So we'll select that, and as we click on 7 white, we expect that it updates the query here. So now we have a full set of data for the selected variant when you click on those different button groups. So let's start adding some data. We're going to add in a text field. Let's add in the SKU. So we can actually drag this all the way to the side. We don't need to put things next to it. And let's go ahead and say get selected variant details.data, and then this will be the first one because we're only going to be selecting one, and then we want the SKU, so we'll display that. And let's go ahead and say give it a label of SKU. We can make this a header 5, header 6. Yeah, that looks fine. So now we have the SKU as we click in to each one. Let's see, what other data can we get in here? This inventory management option, so we can actually say the size and everything like that. We can do that. So option 1 was size, option 2 is white. That's just like a default for Shopify data. When you set up your options like that, it's consistent throughout everything. So let's let's actually just copy this down. We'll make 2 of them, one for size and one for color. We don't have to make these so large, so we'll make these about half size for each. And I think header 6 is the largest. Yeah, so we can't do that. So what we'll do here is, let's remove all of this. Let's say size, and we'll give it a bolding. So doing 2 asterisks, and then instead of SKU in this data set, we're going to say option 1. So that's the size. And then here, we're going to do asterisk, asterisk, color, and then the asterisk to bold it. And we're going to say option 2. So this probably doesn't need to be this big because the size isn't going to have that much information. And then same thing goes for the color. So it's a little smaller. And also bring this over as well. All right, looking good. So I'm gonna click onto this. This should say 12 and white. And then we click on this guy. It should say 4 black. That did not update itself yet because we need to actually trigger the information every single time we get the data. So what we'll do here then, after we get the variant names, let's go over to, no, let's not do that one, let's do this one. So this one gets variant names, and then it sets the variant name when we click it. So timing is very important here. So I'm just thinking in my head, when do we want this trigger to actually happen? So this, where are we doing it? So it sets the selected variant name, it sets that up over here. So when we do that, we click on this, that generates or dynamically updates the button groups, and then we want it to update everything as soon as that loads. So the variant names shows up. You should probably do it after the variant names show up. So this is already setting the selected variant. I guess we can actually do it on the click. So let's do that. We're going to do get selected variant details. Let's see how that works. So we'll click on this guy. That doesn't actually update yet. So you can see here the timing's slightly off. What we're going to want to do is we're going to do this in a different area. So let's say once the variant names are done selecting, let's do the details at that point. Let's save that. Click on this. Okay, so click on this. and it updates. Great, that's what we want. All right, so next thing we want to do, we have the SKU, we have the size, we have the color, we have good rich information here. We have all the SKUs or variants that are available for it. Now let's see what other information can we get from here. So let's hit preview. 6 SKUs here. Let's actually click on something else that has more, so we can see more data to run this. Okay, so this is selected variants. Price is a good one that we can add in here. So let's think about that. So price, what else? What else do we want? We don't, not a lot of weight data in our sample data set, so let's not worry about that. Inventory quantity, 12. So we can use that actually. So let's do that. Let's add in the price information. So in Retool, there's something called statistics component, which looks like this guy over here. And what we'll do is we're going to take that, we're going to drop it in, and you'll notice that it doesn't really look that pretty. Let's put it up here so that it's nice and big, what the price is, and we're going to set this value over to the get selected. Set data, the first one, and then we're going to, I think it was called price. So do price. That's 140. Not per pound, per unit. Precision can be 2, that's fine. Current price, yep, that's right. That looks pretty good. And so now what we can do also, I think we'll do the inventory underneath of this, because we want to also display it with the reserved inventory as well as the sellable quantity, which we'll also calculate for ourselves in a bit. So let's actually add another. Whoop, I hit the preview button by accident. My bad. Hold up. Go back to edit, and you'll see that there's some red over there. That's because you got to select something. All right. So we selected something. Let's. I don't know if we have orders or anything, but right, let's click on this one. All right. So we're going to insert another divider. Grab that right below the price. And I guess since we have that extra white space, let's go ahead and drop the color and the size down a little bit. And let's go ahead and make these header 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we can make the SKU one a little bit larger. Let's make it a header 5, header 4, header 4. Let's go with that. Let's give it a little bit of space there so it's nice and equidistant. So that looks pretty good. I think I've actually tried this. Can you bold it even more? No, it's all the same. All right, so that's just good. Let's enter inventory data on the bottom here. Let's start with orders data now. So the orders data is get orders for product, and that requires the SKU. So we're going to replace the tag here with the SKU value, which we're going to get from the selected inventory, the selected variant data. Data that first, and we're going to grab the SKU. Let's preview that data because looking back, there are no orders for this particular item. Let's go ahead and save this with the preview button. Let's go find something that has some orders on it. This has no orders. What does have orders? It's a classic backpack have orders. It does. All right, great. I think it has one order. That's fine. All right, so we know that our orders data is correct. And then the inventory level, this was only supposed to give us the amount of inventory available. But since we're getting that from our variance data, I don't think we're going to need it. So let's go ahead and preview this. Let's make sure that's right. So this is the inventory quantity. So that's at 10. Let's go ahead and update the inventory level ID over here so that we're using the dynamic content we just rewrote. Get selected variant details dot data first dot inventory item ID. If it says 10, we don't need to make all this queries. Okay, perfect. So we have 10. Let's leave it here just in case we need it, but I don't think we will. So we can delete that later on if we need to. Oh, let's save this first. All right, so we're getting the order information, and then that helps us calculate the reserved inventory. And then we're also going to want to calculate the sellable quantity. So what we'll do here is let's change this up a little bit. Let's say var inventory equals, no curly brackets in the JavaScript code here, get selected data dot inventory quantity. And then we're going to call this sellable quantity equals inventory minus total quantity reserved. I don't know what I just did. Oh, I put it at the beginning. So let's replace that with this. Don't need to do return. All right, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to return an object instead of the single value that we were doing before. So total quantity reserved is equal to that. Sellable quantity is also equal to itself. And then that way now, when we run this calculation, and let's actually just say this is calculate inventory for product for, let's say calculate inventory for variance. This always helps to be super clear in your naming conventions. All right, so now that we have that done, we run this. It's not going to display anything because we haven't run anything yet. Run this, let's preview this now. Table 2 not found. Oh, duh. Table 2 selected row data SKU. We don't need this. We want get selected variant data first SKU. Let's try that again. Okay, so now we have total quantity reserved is 1, sellable quantity is 10. So if you remember, this only had 10 items in it, so we can actually might as well also return the inventory value in here. So we're doing it all in one call. Preview. Inventory is 10. Total quantity reserved is 1. Sellable quantity is 9 because you have to reserve that amount away from the total inventory that you do have. All right, so now that we have all of this, let's go ahead and add the information. So I think we can use the same statistic component. I think that that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and say statistic. Let's add this over here. And while we're at it, let's make a few of these. So let's call this one active orders. Precision is 0. And then we're going to say get orders for product.data.orders.length so we can see how many orders that we have available that are active. There's no prefix and no suffix, so we have one active order. And now this is going to be calculate inventory data for variant.data. I'm going to say inventory. This is going to be total inventory. And let's bring this up. I'm going to make this one a little smaller. We don't need any of this information. Doesn't need to be precise to 2, just be 0. So we're not going to have half products. And we can actually say, let's say units. So we have 10 units. And we want to fit 3 of these here. All right, so now we're going to change this one to reserved. Reserved inventory, and we'll change our data set here to total quantity reserved. And then we'll change this to sellable quantity. So total inventory, reserved inventory, and the sellable inventory. So we have 10 units total, 1 unit reserved in an order. So we have 9 that we can still sell. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and add one more statistic, and we're going to call this outstanding or potential sales, potential revenue. Yeah, let's do that. Potential revenue remaining. So this is going to be that multiplied by the get not customers, get selected data first dot price. Can we do that here? No, we can't. Okay, so we're going to create JavaScript query. Now let's all just do it in one call. Let's do that. So we're going to delete that. Let's go back here, and then let's go ahead and calculate the amount of money that we can make. Call this potential rev. Remember, we don't need all of these curly brackets. And we'll add this down here. Oh, I have to save this. All right, so select. All right. Why are these red? Need to run this. Okay, so this ran. Let's run this. Sellable quantity is undefined. Why are you undefined? New work. Sellable quantity of undefined. Wait, this always happens when you try to do interesting things. Calculate. Oh, because you're asking for yourself. Ha! That's what you do. That's what you get when you copy things around. There we go. That looks better. All right, so we're gonna run that. Now, this is not units, this is dollars. So prefix is a $, and then precision is 2. Yeah, we can leave that there. All right, so let's make this a little smaller. Let's see what we got here. So we got the active orders, inventory data, reserved inventory, sellable inventory, and then we can also calculate how much money we're leaving on the table right now. So let's add another divider here just to divide up inventory data versus our sales data. This up here. Let's actually also, while we're at it, let's give the users a way to see our orders data using a modal. Modals are great for adding in information without having to muddy up your layout. So we're going to say view orders, and then within your modal, we can allow closing for it. Let's make this modal 60% width, and then within here, just for speed's sake, because we don't really need too much. Wait, what's going on here? Okay, something's going on. Here, let's close this first. Okay, Yeah, Retool gets funky sometimes, so that's okay. No problem. All right, so we're going to set this to get inventories data. So get orders, data dot orders. It's going to display all the information that's available for it. So we can say line items. We'll just say tags. So that's the, yeah, that's fine. If we wanted to get more information, we'll do that. We can do that some other time. Let's wrap this up here. The last bit that we're going to do here is we're going to give some dynamic values to this view orders button so that it's disabled when there are no orders available. So we're going to say get orders for product that orders that length is less than 1. Okay, so if we click on this guy, we should see that there are 0 orders. So then this button now is inactive. So let's go ahead and preview this. So this is what we have now. We have information. We can actually hide this. Let's do that too. Let's do it. All right. So in order to hide this, what we're going to want to do is we're going to set a temporary state. And temporary states are nice to have when you can. So we're going to create a new temporary state. We're going to call this onload. Initial value is going to be 0. And then what we're going to do here is on click, we're going to update that temporary state to something else. Send temporary states on load to 1. And then our container here, we're going to say it's hidden when onload dot value equals 0. Make sure to use capitalization. Okay, let's test this out. So it's going to pull the product information. We don't have details on the side. We'll click on this and then it appears. And now we have information on the side and it calculates everything nice and speedy actually. And now the orders button disappears or becomes disabled whenever we select something that doesn't have any orders. So you scroll down and click some more. We can see how much money we're leaving on the table because of our inventory. And that's basically it. If you compare this to what we had before, which this looks a lot better than this over here, which is, basically like a table with a bunch of stuff versus our nice layout over here with nice visuals, dynamic content. You can click through and see all the information for any particular item that you have. And you can click through it and get dynamic data displayed within your container. You can do a lot with this. You can add a lot more stuff. We only did it in this amount of time, but UI UX it's a very important thing. It takes time to actually do this. So if we had more time, we'd actually map things out. And that's essentially it for this video for optimizing your Retool apps, UX and UI using ListViews and Dynamic Content. Makes for a much better experience. We also did a little bit of refactoring for our API calls, so we're not calling the API so much. We're just trying to call them once, and then we're manipulating the data with code within the app using in-memory data. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. We're here to help, so don't be shy. If you have an issue with this, or you have questions about UX UI design, feel free to ask a question. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about this if you are interested in it. But this is a Let's Build, and if you like this video, make sure to click that like button down below. It's the best way to support this channel. If you do like our content, it also helps YouTube realize that this is content that scrappy bootstrappers just like yourself would like to see. And we also have different videos coming out, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified whenever we release the next video, which will have plenty of those. Of course, if you have an app in mind that you'd like to see a video on, send an email to feedback@bootstrapping.tools and we'll be happy to take a look at that video for you. Of course, we have tons of videos, so make sure you check out our YouTube channel, Google Apps Scripts, Google Sheets, Google Data Studio, Google Cloud Storage and Cloud Services, all of that, Retool, as well as other cool apps, Shopify, Airtable, all of that jazz. Lots of information out there, so don't be shy, reach out. But I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools. Let's build. It's been a pleasure, and we're out.